What's up, guys? Adam at Cover 3 Media here. We got a very exciting video for you guys, a 2023 rookie mock draft. I'll get more into the details in a little bit here, but I know it's already, fantasy football playoffs, crazy to think about. Some of you guys have made it in there. Congratulations. Some of you have not. There's always next year. At Cover 3 Media, we talk about redraft leagues. We do a lot of Dynasty. We love Dynasty. That's our main focus here at Cover 3 Media. So, we're always excited about the future and dynasty values going forward. That's why we're doing our 2023 rookie mock drafts so soon. It's because we've been looking into this stuff. Now, I know some of you guys, like I said, are in the playoffs. Congratulations. Some of you guys didn't make it. Both of you guys have valid reasons for being here. Some of you guys are looking forward to the future because you need to rebuild a little bit. Some of you guys are looking to add that extra piece for next year. Some of you guys are just looking to be more dynamic in the future. So appreciate you guys being here for this video. Devin at Cover 3 Media already made a video a few weeks ago for the first round, 12 picks. Go check that out if you haven't already. If you like this video especially, go check that out for another perspective on the first round. In my video this week, guys, I'm doing 2 rounds, okay? We're doing a 12-team mock draft for 2 rounds. We're involving Superflex in these rankings, and it's going to be PPR as well because here at Cover 3 Media, we love PPR. So yeah, without further ado, I say we get right into it. All right, guys, with this mock draft, I'm going to break guys into tiers a little bit here because I can respect that. A lot of guys watching this video, you guys out there, you might have different, team needs that, you're like, okay, well, I see you rank this guy number 1, but I really need, this position to be filled. So I'm going to break it into tiers where I think, these are the kind of guys you can be drafting a little bit fluidly within that tier, depending on your team need and depending on which guy really, really sparks interest. You do your own research, of course, guys. Watch your own film, look over your own stats, consider all the variables, and whichever guy really, sparks your interest and you think, maybe, Adam said, hey, this guy's in the tier 1. I agree with that, but I think he's the number 1 pick and I need this for my team. I'm going with it. I've done that in the past with my teams. I think it works beautifully. So tier 1 guys, I got 4 guys in this first tier. That is 2 quarterbacks and 2 running backs, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And then we got Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Okay, these are my top 4 guys. I think there are some guys I'm obviously going to lean towards more than others. Specifically 1 running back and 1 quarterback that I think are a little bit better than the other quarterback and running back. So let's just get right into it. Number 1 overall pick, Bijan Robinson. I know this is Superflex, guys, but Bijan is probably the most bulletproof player on this list, especially in this number 1 tier. Now, I think this tier number 1 here, these first 4 guys are obviously the most bulletproof guys on this list, meaning that regardless of situation, I think they've earned enough draft capital in the NFL where they're going to go somewhere and the team is going to be invested in this player and they're going to get their playing time eventually. And they're probably going to make the most of it. So I'm thinking these first 4 guys are virtually bulletproof just because they've earned enough, reputation with these NFL scouts and these NFL GMs, front offices, all that. I think that matters. I think that definitely matters is reputation here, guys. So later on down the list, we're going to talk about that a little bit because I think that's going to make a difference come NFL draft and what I think that's going to mean for their overall fantasy production in the future. Now, getting right back into it, Bijan Robinson, I think he's the most bulletproof guy in this tier just because he's done a lot. He's done a lot for the Texas Longhorns, guys. Rushing and receiving, I think he's a true 3-down back who's got potential beyond the field for 3 downs. 1, 2, 3, first, second, third down. He's got the rushing ability. He's got the receiving ability. So let me break him down a little bit more, guys. I will make a video, I should say now, breaking down each of the different positions, ranking each position there, where I might go into a little bit more depth on ranking, running backs over another, quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends. If you want to go get a little bit more of a deeper dive on these players, I do want to try to keep this mock draft kind of quick here, just so that, we stick to the point. But Bijan, very explosive player laterally, very hard cuts, very good jukes, makes people miss, arm tackles, weak tackles at the waist, very good at breaking those tackles, guys. I think this guy is a crazy all-around back who can be utilized. He's got the size for running back in the NFL. He can be utilized 3 downs, guys. Very high volume looking forward in the NFL. I know his volume hasn't been as crazy as certain running backs in the past. These guys who I should say are almost outliers. Guys like JT who's getting 300, carries a season in Wisconsin. I mean, we're not really seeing that in this running back class, guys, but I'm seeing guys who have potential to be that dynamic in the NFL. And I actually think it's great that some players on this list haven't been getting as much workload as JT, just from an overall, less tread on the tires perspective for the NFL. So Bijan Robinson, very great pick here at number 1. I think his breakaway speed is going to be the only thing that kind of diminishes his value a little bit. I think he's going to be about a 4.5 40 here, guys. But again, he makes people miss, whether it's making cuts or whether it's breaking tackles. And then he's a great receiving back. Just overall, great talent. Number 2, we got Bryce Young. I know. It's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Very close race there. Devin in his video said CJ. I'm saying Bryce Young, guys. I just think that Bryce Young has done better work with less talent. I think, who knows? If Bryce Young was in CJ's situation, maybe Bryce Young would have been a Heisman finalist for 2 years and maybe the Heisman winner 2 years in a row. So, Bryce Young, I just think from what I've watched on film, I like his play style a little bit more than CJ Stroud. I think Bryce Young, if he's going to be successful in the NFL, he's going to adopt a play style like a prime or a young Russell Wilson where, he can use his legs to get out of the pocket. He evades sacks. He gets yardage on the ground, but he's not going to be used like a Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields where, there's a lot of design runs for him where he's going to get beaten up because he is an undersized quarterback, and I know that's been a main concern. But I still think Bryce Young can get it done. He's got enough height, guys. He's like 6 feet tall. Again, I know he's under 200 pounds, but this guy, watching him throw the ball, it's great. I think he's going to do well in the NFL. The only reason why I might be a little bit concerned about Bryce Young over CJ Stroud is Bryce Young's draft capital might be too high to the point where he's going to go to an absolutely horrendous team like the Houston Texans, who have a pretty poor overall franchise. They're not looking good right now. It might take a few years for that team to develop and be a really solid team. Whereas CJ Stroud might go somewhere like the Lions or the Seahawks, where they're already set up for success, and CJ is just going to be thrown into a great system. So that's where I think CJ might bounce over Bryce Young in my rankings after the NFL draft. So that's a perfect opportunity for me to tell you guys, hey, if you guys like this video, if you enjoy what I'm dishing out here, guys, subscribe. Maybe fill out the notifications so you can be aware of when we're posting our videos after the NFL Combine, after the NFL draft, so you guys are well prepared for this 2023 rookie draft. I think there's a lot of great players on this list, like I said, where you might have to choose between players. I do think, after doing my research on this draft, I think there's going to be a lot of forgiveness in this first round as far as who you pick. I just think there's a lot of talent. There's going to be a lot of forgiveness. It's going to be much different than last year's draft where you had to make the right picks because it was very slim. So yeah. Also, another thing to look out for, you guys, if you're into IDP, we should be making another mock draft after the Combine and especially after the NFL draft, incorporating some IDP players so you can kind of see, hey, where are these guys being ranked in such a deep offensive rookie class, okay? Also, watch out for Christian's mock draft video here, guys. Probably after the college football playoffs, he'll get some guys on this list here. So yeah, number 3, I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs here, guys. I'm thinking he is such an explosive player. I know he hasn't really shown as much, ability to handle workload just because he is a more slender running back here, guys. I think he's very explosive from what I've seen on the tape. I think I'm just very excited about this guy, how fast he is up and down the field and side to side. I think if he gets into the right system, guys, he can be fantastic. There are systems where I might get a little bit worried where they might need to rely on him a little bit too much in the rushing game. And he might be a little bit susceptible to injury or just overall too much work for his body type. Now, I'm not gonna lean too heavily on that, guys, because I think Jahmyr Gibbs is just fantastic. This is where I was saying before, like this tier 1 is a little bit funky because I don't know if I could necessarily take Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan Robinson. I think you got to have some balls to do that, but I could see it panning out if I'm being honest. This guy is a great receiving back, one of Bryce Young's top targets in the offense as a running back. he just gets it done out of the backfield. Very, very, very two-faceted back here, guys, where he can get it done on the ground, and he's very, very efficient in the receiving game. So PPR, that's fantastic for you guys. Liking what I'm seeing out of him going forward, and I'm interested to see where his landing spot is. I know that might change the rankings. Now, I would love to dive deeper into these running backs, but again, I'm going to make another video ranking my running backs, receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, so that you guys can get a better understanding of why I think these guys fit where they fit. Now, the last guy in this tier, you probably know it already, CJ Stroud, because I didn't say it, but I just think he's number 4, guys, behind Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is more of a solid pick here. Overall value, I think you guys can maneuver in a dynasty league where, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have immediate impact, and someone might be, a little bit stupid and trade you a lot of picks for him, and you might be able to turn that into value if you need more of a long-lasting dynasty asset. Whereas CJ Stroud, I could see him maybe taking a year or two to really develop and be dominant. So CJ Stroud, I have him at the 4th pick here, guys, just because I know his stats have shown to be great. But I will say I'm concerned that he's had such talent at the wide receiver position the past 2 years that have been helping him. I watched the tape. His receivers sometimes are just wide spanking open, which makes it really easy for a quarterback to make the right plays. I think when you're analyzing quarterbacks and all players, you have to take in the whole team. You have to take that whole perspective into it and just think, okay, could there be a reason outside of this guy's skill why he's performing so well? And this is where I'm saying, hey, if CJ falls into a great situation, maybe like the Seahawks, where he's got a great running back in the rushing game with Ken Walker, and he's got, DK, see what's going on with Lockett if he's still around. This guy's set up for success. Got Noah Fant there too. He's set up for success where, that transition is going to be smooth for him. But I'm concerned with these Ohio State quarterbacks in the past. Their terrible track record in the NFL. And then just looking at CJ Stroud's, who's been surrounding him, I'm a little bit concerned with his transition to the NFL, just not having such solid options at wide receiver, and just his stats in college being partially a factor of having, Garrett Wilson, Olave, and Jackson Smith last year, and then this year having Marvin Harrison and, this new guy, what's his name? It starts with an E, but they've been showing out too. Is it because of CJ or is it because they're fantastic receivers? I don't know. So that's why he's at 4. All right, now we got the next tier, guys. This tier is going to be, a little bit of it's going to be another four-player tier. I have to say it's going to be 4 players. Pick 5 through 8. I think these guys, it's going to depend on landing spot here in the NFL draft. Where you take them in your rookie drafts. I think some of these guys might land in a fantastic situation where you're like, hey, these guys are all around the same skill level. They're a different type of players, which I think will definitely factor into it too. But I think the overall NFL Combine and then the NFL Draft might have you guys drafting some guys over another. Now, I will say there might be a little bit of fluidity here, guys, if I'm being honest, between tier 1 and 2 in the sense that CJ Stroud, I could see him being a little bit fluid with some of these receivers if they go to a fantastic spot and if CJ Stroud goes to a terrible position. So that's why I think there's a little bit of fluidity between this tier 1 and 2 is CJ Stroud at that, at that low end of tier 1, and then some of these players in tier 2 that I think are all equally pretty dang good. So let's get right into it. Pick number 5, Quentin Johnson, guys, 6'4", 215 stud, okay? I know that there's some concerns, with these taller receivers that, hey, maybe they're just that good in college because they got that height advantage. I know that was, the case in the past. I was thinking that way with Drake London. I was personally not as high on Drake London just because there was something in his game that was missing for me as a tall receiver in college. And I think we've kind of seen that in the NFL. I'm not saying that Drake London isn't going to be a good receiver down the line. I think he might need some years to develop here more, and he needs some more, better offensive play calling, better quarterback situation. I think that all plays into it. So I think that's where obviously we're looking at quarterback situation here, guys, and overall offensive situation with these receivers, looking at what's going to happen here. But Quentin Johnson, 21 and a quarter years old currently, at the time of this video. So in the NFL, he's probably going to be around, when he starts, he's probably going to be like fresh 22. 6'4", 215, respectable 40 time. I've seen stuff out there where he's like, mid to low 4.4 for a 6'4" receiver, and that weight, that's pretty dang good. I know his stats, he hasn't had the best like volume stats, guys, but in college football, I'm not always looking at volume stats. I want to see great plays. I want to see efficiency. I want to watch his tape and see him make fantastic plays. I want to see how's the route running, how is their IQ, how fast are the cuts, obviously, in the route running. For a bigger receiver, that might be a little bit tougher. I think that Quentin Johnson makes some good cuts in his route running. I think he gets open very well for a 6'4" guy. He's a very, very nice deep threat. He's got some speed, size in the deep threat, on the deep passes, sorry guys. And then he's also magnificent making these wild plays when the ball's in the air. I think he's a great contested catch receiver, 50-50 balls. Overall, I'm just very impressed with this guy. I think if this guy goes to the right situation, he's going to be dangerous. I think he's got great run after catch ability too. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Run after catch. How well is this guy at catching the ball and making a quick move and getting himself some space in the open field and getting yards after catch? I'm in love with Quentin Johnson. I think NFL Combine, he's going to show up. He's going to be fantastic. And I think in the NFL draft, he's going to have high draft value for these NFL teams. I think people are going to fall in love with him. I just think he's a better version of Drake London. More athletic, better catching, better route running, better run after catch. That's my personal opinion. Okay? So that's why I got him at the 105. At the 106, I got to say, guys, it's Jackson Smith-Njigba. What he did in that, playoff game was ridiculous. Okay, having 300 plus yards and the touchdown totals, how can you like forget about that, I should say. This guy, fantastic receiver. He's got that nice 6'1", 200-pound build. I think he is a little bit slower than Quentin Johnson here, guys, but hey, still fast enough to get the job done. Still a very talented receiver. I mean, this guy was one of the top receivers on Ohio State when Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave was there. If not, you could say the most talented one there as a sophomore. This could be a Jamar Chase story with Justin Jefferson. Now, I know Justin Jefferson has been showing up in the NFL. Different player than Jamar Chase, but he's been consistently dominating. And I think Jamar Chase is coming, to that level too. Not far behind. I'm not saying he is far behind, but hey, Jackson Smith-Njigba, I've seen enough out of him where I think he's easily the number 2 receiver off this list, if not number 1. But I do got to say the injury concerns this last season, it's a little bit concerning, but that might lower his draft value. And obviously, again, landing spot will make a difference. Now, this guy, when we're looking at volume stats, this guy, as a sophomore with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, had 95 receptions for 1,600 yards, averaging 17 yards per reception and 9 touchdowns in 13 games. That's a great season for a wide receiver in college. Quentin Johnson, guys, I just want to touch back on him. His average yards per catch was, in his whole career, 18.7. Now, that's steadily declined over his progression in college football, but I love to see that he was still able to maintain 17 yards per catch his senior year when he got the most volume. I think keeping that overall efficiency up with more volume is fantastic. I think it's like a curve. It's like a inverse bell curve where, how should I put it? I think it's when you're getting lower overall volume, your efficiency is usually higher because you're just so fresh every time you get the ball, and that slowly decreases as you get more and more volume. But I do think, inverse bell curve. Sometimes when you get so much volume, you're getting so many opportunities to have big plays that it can kind of trend upwards after a certain point of overall volume, where you're just getting the ball so much where it's like, man, there's got to be a breakoff play, especially in college football. Sorry for that long-winded explanation there. At the 107, I got Jordan Addison. I know a lot of you guys have him as your number 1 receiver coming off the fantasy football mock draft boards. I just can't get on board with that, guys. Obviously, I think, landing spot will help. I think I'm kind of getting a good gauge of what I think his NFL combine is going to be. I don't think it can be much better than what I'm expecting. So I don't think that's really going to influence his position in my mind that much. Maybe for NFL, the NFL draft it might. Maybe landing spot it might, which will come into play when we make our final mock draft video after the NFL draft. But Jordan Addison, I just think, he is a little bit undersized. I am a Devonta Smith fan. So I think it can work in the NFL. But I think from what I saw off the highlight tape, there might be a little bit of areas where he might be limited with the contested catch. I think that might be something where I would like to see more of Jordan Addison doing that, contested catching, because I think it can be a little bit limiting for a receiver to, just work and catch balls in open space. I think, especially in the NFL. So I think, his player comparison for me is Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is totally a great comparison. If that's his ceiling or a little bit better, fantastic. I think it's going to matter where he goes in this draft. I think he's going to be more of a predominantly slot type receiver, given his size and quickness, and his route running. I think he'd fit really well into a slot role in an offense. But yeah, I'm liking his overall stats. I know I said I'm not like the biggest volume stat guy, but he has had nice volume. His age especially is very intriguing at 20 years old right now, guys. Finishing his sophomore year when he was 19 years old, he had 1,600 yards. I know that's a volume stat, but it was his best average yards per catch his whole entire college football career at 16. That went down a yard in his senior year. But seeing such production out of a young player like that is very enticing. It's going to be enticing for the GMs. It's going to be enticing for the coaches and the front office in the NFL. And it's very enticing as a fantasy football dynasty player come the draft. So we'll see what happens there, guys. I do have him ranked above Josh Downs because I think they're very similar players. Josh Downs, I think, is a little bit more explosive, a little bit faster up and down the field. I think his 40 time is going to be, now I know we're just pinching pennies, but about a 4.3 to a 4.4, where I think Jordan Addison is going to fall more in that 4.4 range. Josh Downs, very quick receiver. I think I honestly saw more out of Josh Downs on the highlight tape than I did out of Jordan Addison. I think Josh Downs reminds me of Justin Jefferson, a more undersized Justin Jefferson. So, we'll see if he, maybe puts on a little bit more weight in the NFL, which who knows, maybe that'll slow him down a little bit, but a little bit more undersized than Justin Jefferson, guys. But I gotta say, his play style reminded me a lot of Justin Jefferson in college. His contested catches, fabulous. I loved it. If he catches your eye on these highlight tapes the same way he's catching my eye, I think we might see, the same here, where it's like, wow, this is a special player. If the GMs don't take this guy in the top 20 of the NFL draft, I'd be shocked because he is just talented. He's very fast. I know there's been, concerns about receivers with speed in the past, but this guy has shown more than just his speed in college football. And I think that's he's just a dynamic player with speed and ability to catch contested catches at his size. I just love it, guys. I would not be surprised if he's the best receiver in this wide receiver class. I mean, it is a stacked class. That is my opinion. It is a stacked class for receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. I have a little bit of a concern with the quarterbacks, guys. Why? Every year there's quarterbacks that are drafted high in the NFL draft because bad teams need them. And sometimes that can influence our decisions as fantasy football owners. We've seen in the past that quarterbacks sometimes take years to develop, if ever. So that's why I did have Bijan over Bryce Young. That's why I had Jahmyr Gibbs over C.J. Stroud. And I could say you could take those two running backs over the two quarterbacks because I think the running backs are a little bit safer picks. Obviously, I think the quarterbacks can pan out and be much better value down the line. But if you want to play it safe, I was just saying the running backs are safer. So anyways, getting back to Josh Downs, I love the guy. He deserves high draft value in this draft. I don't think anyone else can say differently. I will not listen to anyone who says differently. So that's my take on Josh Downs, guys. I wouldn't be shocked again if he's the best on this list. So if you have the 8th pick here, guys, 1.08, and Josh Downs falls to you, you need a receiver, I would be very delighted to have him on my team if I were you. Obviously, situation is going to play a little factor into that, but his talent, fantastic. We've got 6 guys in tier 3 that I think, depending their landing spot, depending their combine results, it's going to influence where I'm taking them in these next 6 picks. Now, I think their talent right now and my projected combine results makes them pretty interchangeable depending on situation, like I said, depending on final combine results, and overall team need, overall future outlook. So let's get right into it, guys. Pick number 9, 109. We got Jalen Hyatt, guys. Another receiver off the board here. I think he is the next best after these 4 guys that I mentioned before. I don't think he necessarily has broken into that tier yet, but he's very, very borderline to the point where I can maybe draw the tier 1 guy less. But I just don't know. He's a great player, great highlights. I love what I saw. Don't get me wrong, but these guys are just so down and above him. I just have a hard time. I really do. So maybe that tier line will be drawn a little bit lower, maybe because of the combine. I know he's a speedster, maybe because of his NFL draft landing spot and overall the capital that he's taken with. So we'll keep a keen eye on that. But Jalen Hyatt, man, watching his highlights, looking over his stats, I was significantly impressed. Obviously, consistent. I think, not really consistent, but exploded his junior year, guys. Not really as much consistent progression as overall in the sense that freshman, sophomore, junior year, he got better because freshman year, sophomore year were about the same. But this past season, to average 19 yards per catch as a junior and 15 touchdowns, he had some wild games against some good teams. Good teams. So this guy, he's looking like he's going to be a sub 4.3 40 in the combine. 6 foot 180, again, a little bit undersized, but find the right landing spot, guys. Maybe he's going, first round, I think for sure. He goes to the right team here, guys. I'd be afraid. I would be afraid because there are some teams that are going to be in that pick 20 through 32 range where if he lands there, it's going to be scary. So, especially dynasty-wise. So that's why he's borderline tier 2, definitely high-end tier 3 here, guys. And I gotta take him at the 109 as of right now if we didn't know what's going to happen in the future. Okay? Watch his highlight reel. This guy has got burner speed. Now, I know, like we said before, the speed sometimes isn't always transferable to the NFL. So that's why I got him at the 109 because I need to see a little bit more out of him. I think there's a little bit more risk in taking him. Now, back to the Superflex pick, another quarterback at the 110. We got Anthony Richardson. I know a lot of you guys like Will Levis, guys, but I'm personally more of an Anthony Richardson fan, being 21.6, same age range as Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. He's 2 years younger than Will Levis, okay? I think that's going to come into account when it's discerning his draft position in the NFL draft. Maybe Will Levis might be taken before him just because he's got more solid passing capabilities as of right now. But I'm telling you guys, Anthony Richardson, watching his tape, this guy has got some raw talent as a passer. He almost kind of reminds me of Josh Allen. Josh Allen wasn't the highest rated quarterback coming out of college. He was just a guy who had raw talent, a big QB who had the potential to run, break sacks, and he just had a strong arm. Just an absolute piss missile. And I think that is Anthony Richardson. An absolute missile for an arm. I just love it. He throws a laser. It's just like straight line to his wide receiver. I think if he falls into the right situation, guys, with the right quarterback coaches, maybe a year or two to develop, that's where I'm thinking he's going to be more of a project. That's where I think Anthony Richardson, honestly, you could put him down and maybe draft him a little bit lower because he is going to be a project. I'm going to be honest with you guys. He's got a lot of raw talent that needs honing in, but he will be able to get the job done on the ground, which might help him early on in his career as a quarterback, getting out of the pocket, getting yards, positive yards, keeping the drive going. He's going to be a dynamic quarterback in the league, guys. I'm very confident in him as 6'4", 232, got that nice big quarterback build, and he's got a fast 40 time. He's got a 4.45 is what they're projecting him. That is nice. Very, very nice for a tall quarterback with an absolute piss missile for an arm, throws an absolute dot, just on a rope. I'm loving that. I love quarterbacks who have that trait. So it's all about development here, guys. The 110, I think that's a fine spot for him just because I think this is where it gets to the point where this is going to be a little bit long-winded here. This is where it gets to the point in my mock draft where it's like we got some great players below Anthony Richardson, but it's going to, as of right now, I don't know what their landing spot is. I don't know what the combine is going to look like where I can project their landing spot a little bit better. And this is where I think Anthony Richardson might be a safer pick for Dynasty down the line. Whereas these running backs and receivers below Anthony Richardson on my list, they have the potential to be fantastic Dynasty assets. But I think as a safety pick, as an overall long-term pick, Anthony Richardson fits in nicely here at the 110. And then we're going to talk about the 111. Kendre Miller, a name you guys probably haven't heard of much at all. But this guy's a running back for TCU, been there for 3 years, was the running back behind Zach Evans, but he's a year younger than Zach Evans. Same class. So that's why I got him above Zach Evans. I think they are kind of similar players. But when I watched the tape for Kendre Miller, I think, and the fact that he's 20 and a half years old, comparative to Zach Evans, 21.6 years old, I'm thinking he's got an extra year on Zach Evans. This guy has shown he's a very explosive running back. Man, I'm excited. He can get it done in the receiving game just as Zach Evans can too. So Kendre Miller, I think if he gets the proper draft capital and the proper attention that he deserves, I think he is easily the third running back off this board in a mock draft, where I think if he gets a fantastic spot, man, this guy could catapult himself into the top end of this tier 3 or even the mid-range of tier 2. I don't think he's a tier 1 running back, unfortunately, but if he gets a good landing spot, and I think he deserves it, as well as Zach Evans and Tank Bigsby in this tier, I think they all deserve good landing spots. I think they all deserve at least round 2 draft capital. That's just how good I think they are. I think then we're looking good. We're looking fantastic. But Kendre Miller, I know a lot of you guys haven't heard of him. Watch his tape. He's got some pretty good stats here, guys. Let me pull that up for you. In his 3 years, he averaged 6.7 yards per carry. I know the first two years he was sub 100 attempts per game, or attempts on the season. But this last season, 216 carries for 1,350 yards, averaging 6.2 yards per carry, 17 touchdowns, 16 receptions, and 116 yards, averaging 7.3 yards per catch. In his career, he's averaged 7.9 yards per catch, so he can get it done in the receiving game. This guy's 20 and a half years old, so he's young. He's done good work as a young running back. He's 6 feet tall, 220. Similar build as Bijan Robinson. But I will say, watching Kendre Miller's tape, he's more explosive up and down the field, and I think he's got more of a burst than Bijan Robinson. I gotta say it, okay? Maybe he's got a little bit less, probably a good amount less, just because Bijan is such a good lateral mover with his cuts, jukes, whatever. Kendre Miller, still fantastic at making cuts. Still a very elusive running back for his size. He's got the prototypical NFL build at 6 feet, 220. If he was even 5'11", 220, I might be even more in love with him, being that he's so quick on this tape. I mean, I am significantly, very impressed with him after watching his tape. I didn't know who he was until I started doing some research. I'm like, holy crap, this guy slipped through the cracks. NFL GMs, coaches, scouts, I'm telling you, if you're watching this video now, if you don't take Kendre Miller, you're making a mistake. I know a lot of you guys out there have veteran backs who are getting older. You got guys who just aren't getting the job done. And this guy can add a lot of dynamics to your offense. Very good running back. Okay, so NFL coaches aren't going to watch this video anyway. So, and if they did, they would be getting some grade A information here. We got some sacred information I covered through media. I'll be severely disappointed if Kendre Miller doesn't get a good draft spot and his career is ruined because we got the bimbos in the front office of the NFL. That's just how they are. We've seen it year after year. It's getting me angry. I gotta get past it, okay? This guy, prototypical build, quick. I'm excited to see what he does in the combine. I think if he's sub 4.5, I'm in love. If he's above that, I might fear for his draft stock declining. But I just think he's got the speed after what I've seen. So I think he's a more physical back, younger back than Zach Evans. That's why I got to put him above Zach Evans right now. That's why I think the NFL coaches and front office and GMs got to see that. They got to take him above Zach Evans. If he gets a good landing spot, fantastic. There's something else I wanted to add about this. Oh, yeah. So with these next three backs, their offensive lines have not been great. TCU, very average offensive line. And what Kendre Miller has been able to do with an average offensive line has been fantastic. I'm loving it. So, that's where a guy like Zach Charbonnet, he's not higher up on this list because his offensive line was one of the best in the country based on the stats I was looking at. Maybe I'm wrong. But Kendre Miller, man, dang, looking good. Another statistic I want to bring to you guys' attention, which was very, very hard to find, is Kendre Miller's yards after contact. I believe it was like 3.16 yards after contact, which is fantastic. This guy reminds me of kind of like a Dameon Pierce situation where, Dameon Pierce was sheltered from a lot of volume at his career in Florida, but he was just that good that he got drafted to the NFL, and look at him now, doing great. Okay, bear with me. So Miller recorded a missed tackle on 31% of his runs. Shows his vision, shows how good he is at making people miss. And then yards after contact, his ability, 3.6 yards after contact per attempt. This guy is a threat. If his draft stock doesn't consistently increase, if he's not taken at the level that Ken Walker was taken last year, I'm pissed. I'm not happy. Fantastic. Like this article says, his ceiling is number 3 running back in this class for the draft. He could be the best. I'm just saying, he could be. I love him. Fantastic. All right. Next running back off this board at the 112 to round out the first round is Zach Evans. Similar build to Kendre Miller. I think he's got a little bit less overall power in his runs, but he doesn't shy away from contact. He watches highlight tapes. He goes in for some hard hits, and he comes out on top sometimes, which is pretty good to see out of a guy who's 6 foot tall, 215, a little bit more slender than Kendre Miller. I would not be surprised if Zach Evans through the combine ended up being 210. But he's a year older than Kendre Miller, not terrible, but he's probably going to be entering the NFL his first season starting at about 22 and a quarter years old, which isn't the greatest, but still I'm liking it for the future. In his career as a running back at TCU, he averaged 7.7 yards per carry and then 7 yards per carry. And then he transferred to Ole Miss and averaged 6.6. So his whole career, he averaged 7 yards per carry. Fantastic. Gets the work done in the receiving game. I think the biggest thing about Zach Evans is, although he's just a tad bit slender, he is probably one of the faster backs out of this draft class, projecting him around a 4.4 40 time. Could be even faster, which would be fantastic for his draft stock in the NFL draft. I think there are some areas where he could land, where he could be great. Again, I'm going to go into a video breaking down these guys even further. I'm trying to keep this quick. But yeah, very low tread on the tires in college. 136 attempts this past season, the most he's gotten in his career as a college football player, and 900 yards on the season. So volume stats aren't really there, but hey, I'm liking him going into the NFL with that lower volume. And then the next guy at our list, a guy who I honestly did not see or hear a lot of headlines about, Marvin Mims at the 2.01, okay? I didn't hear a whole lot about him, guys, but hey, when I watched his film, his route running is fabulous. Now, I know he's a little bit slower of a receiver for his size. He's not, not super slow. We'll see what the combine says, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's in that 4.45 or 4.5 40 time range, which isn't burning speed, but it's enough to get the job done, guys. Watch his tape, the route running. I mean, I think this guy Although I'm not so sure he's going to have the ceiling of a Devontae Adams. I think he's got a similar play style where, at least in the route running, where he could have a considerable career here, guys. I think he is a steal, honestly, at this 2.01 spot. If he falls into people's hands, this is the part of having such a deep draft class for rookies, is there's going to be guys like this where it's like, holy crap, Marvin Mims fell into my hand, and he's one of the top receivers in his draft class. It very well could happen, guys. I'm loving him. I don't want to waste too much of your guys' time here, but let's look at the stats here for a second. Last year, best year as far as volume stats go, with 1,000 yards in the season. He is 21, so, you know, he's in that mid-range for age, 5'11", 184, a little bit undersized in that regard, but, you know, 19 yards per catch this past season. He's got that route running just helps him deep downfield in the deep threat. So 19 yards per catch this past season. The season before that, when he was a sophomore, 22 yards per catch. And the year before that, as a freshman, 16 and a half. So this guy has got something special about his route running. And I think he's probably gonna find a good landing spot here, guys. I would say in the early to mid second round. So hopefully he goes to a team that just needs that last piece in the passing game and the receiving game to help them with their season. So next guy, I put Tank Bigsby a little bit below Marvin Mims at the 2.02 here, guys, just because I'm just a little bit concerned about his draft stock. I think he hasn't been getting enough attention that he deserves, considering he had one of the worst offensive lines in the SEC and one of the worst in college football. So Tank Bigsby, I know his overall efficiency isn't as good as some of the guys I mentioned before on the ground. Let me pull up the stats for you guys here. But what I see out of this guy is similar to Keandre Miller, similar to all the guys I mentioned above him, where he's got that build, that running back build. He's 6 feet tall, 213, so about the same size as Zach Evans, but I think he runs with more power than Zach Evans. For some reason, it just seems like he's got more of a impact when he runs. Very good up and down the field speed. I'd probably put him in the low 4, or I should say the high 4.4 time, so around 4.45 to 4.45 40 there. Which if he falls outside of that, like a 4.55, maybe I'm getting a little bit, you know, I don't know where he goes in the NFL draft. But I mean, with this terrible Auburn offensive line, he still averaged 5.4 yards per carry. This last season, I think they dialed back on his overall workload, maybe because the offense wasn't moving the ball down the field enough. But the year before, 223 carries for 1,100 yards, 4.9 yards per carry. Again, not the greatest, but I think a nice highlight here for Tank Bigsby is his work in the receiving game. He's probably, based on overall production, the third best, receiving back in this draft class behind Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. So I think I love that upside for PPR, and I think he could be a really dynamic player if he's drafted to the right team. And he's just got that overall, I think, workload back, size, and run style. So I'm liking that, guys. And I think this is probably the biggest selling point for me on Tank Bigsby, where he could catapult his way above Keandre Miller and Zach Evans in the NFL draft and overall in the future for his overall success. But with this terrible offensive line, what that kind of gave him was his missed tackle rate was 40%. So, when people are getting through the offensive line, maybe catching him in the backfield, he missed, or even in the open field, he makes people miss on 40% of his carries. 40%. Crazy. Last year. And then another big thing too, which I think teams are going to look at, is his yards after contact per attempt. 4.16 yards after contact per attempt. This guy makes people miss. This guy breaks tackles. So this is where I was saying this guy is a bigger runner than he is. I mean, maybe it's mentality, maybe it's his strength. But this guy, I'm liking what I have to see. I know I'm kind of jumbled on this, guys, but these running backs I'm just really excited about here. 25% of his routes in the receiving game have come out of the slot or out wide. That's freaking great to hear out of running back coming into the 2023 NFL draft. That's where this guy, again, the yards after contact per attempt, the missed tackles that he forced, his ability to receive in the receiving game and out wide in the slot. Come on, please. This is fantastic. This guy is looking like a pretty dang good second round running back pick, which we don't see often. We don't see that often in many rookie drafts for Dynasty or for fantasy. So keep that in mind, guys. Tier 4 is a solid 3 players. We got 1 quarterback, 1 running back, and 1 tight end. I think they're just a little bit separated from this tier 3, and I think they're definitely separated from tier 5 for sure. So let's get right into it. We got 1 quarterback, Will Levis. We got 1 running back, Sean Tucker, and we got 1 tight end, Michael Mayer. We're gonna start off with the 3rd pick in the 2nd round here, guys, with Will Levis here. A Superflex league, you got to take him here, guys. I think any lower, we're starting to get, we're undervaluing him. I know he's older, 23 and a half years old. We've seen older quarterbacks come into the league and take care of business. So I know the age is probably going to be a knock on him for Dynasty and overall NFL draft capital, just because, you begin to think, okay, this guy's older in college football. Is he dominating because, he's a very good quarterback talent? Or is it because he's a very good quarterback talent? Or do we start thinking, okay, this guy's older, he's a good quarterback talent for college football, but he got that, overall down is because he is older and he has a lot of time to be just older than people and more developed. So this 3rd pick in the 2nd round, I think this is a nice spot for him where you can take a risk on him. I think Will Levis is more NFL ready than Anthony Richardson, so that's where, maybe landing spot Will Levis might catapult his way up there, but long term, I think Anthony Richardson definitely has the step up on Will Levis in my book. So 2.03 right there, guys. Then we go to the 2.04, 4th pick in the 2nd round. We got Michael Mayer. Now I know this guy has got a lot of attention as a great tight end coming out of college this year. Could make a very, very nice impact on an NFL team. Tight ends are tricky though, because I think sometimes they might not have an immediate impact. They can be very hard to predict. I know a lot of you guys drafted, Kyle Pitts heavily in the 1st round, and he had a very promising 1st year. 2nd year fell off. Do I think it's necessarily Kyle Pitts' fault? No, but this is the thing with tight ends. I think they can, be a very, very dependent on their quarterbacks, their offensive systems, and the play calling. So that's where I get a little bit weary about Michael Mayer. If he falls into a system where I'm like, hey man, they pepper their tight ends or they utilize their tight ends properly, Michael Mayer might work his way up there and catapult himself into the tier 3 guys, into the tier 3 range, especially if the guys I mentioned, the 6 guys I mentioned before, get a very poor landing spot. I'm like, hey, Michael Mayer, great landing spot, better than this guy. I think he's got the opportunity to show up. He might work his way up my list here. But right now, as things are, I got him at the 4th overall pick in the 2nd round. And then the last guy in this tier, Sean Tucker, guys. I know some of the fantasy producers out there, a lot of the rankings have Sean Tucker way higher on this list. I think Sean Tucker is my 6th running back in my rankings. There's something I saw, when I was watching him, I just think he was lacking the explosiveness that these other running backs possess. Now, I know Sean Tucker has a very nice running back build for the NFL, being a little bit more stocky and being like he's like 5'10", 205, so I guess he's a little bit lighter, but he is more stocky, so there's that. He is 21 years old, so he's got that youth there, got that youth factor. But I think he lacks that overall burst for breakaway runs. I think he's got good cuts. He's got pretty good elusiveness in the backfield and in the open field. But guys, I just think he's a little bit slow on his cuts. He's a little bit slow in accelerating upfield. That's just what I saw in the highlights and in his overall film. But we can see his average yards per carry was like 5.4 across his career. He does have pretty good volume stats as far as being utilized in Syracuse's offense there, and he's been utilized in the receiving game. You could make the argument that he's a better receiving back than Tank Bigsby because he's got better overall more more yards in his career on just about the same amount of receptions. Tank has 62 receptions, Sean Tucker has 64, but Sean Tucker has about 180 more receiving yards than Tank Bigsby. So, and 4 touchdowns in the receiving game. So we'll see where he lands. We'll see where his draft capital is. But I'm thinking as of right now, I think his combine is going to hurt him a little bit here, guys. I think his average yards per carry is going to hurt him too, just in the NFL draft and where he lands. I think, if he gets a better landing spot than some of the running backs I, mentioned before, I think he could be up there. But Sean Tucker scares me, if I'm being honest, as far as his overall success in the league going forward. So that's why I've got him rated so low in my rankings as a mid-second round pick in a 12-person league where I don't want to invest too much capital in him. And I just think this class is just too special to the point where, if this were last year's class, I think Sean Tucker would have probably been picked before James Cook easily. So, it's just one of those things where maybe his draft capital declines because it's just such a deep class. Something to look out for, guys. All right, and then for the next tier, we got a tight end, wide receiver, and running back here, guys. We got Zach Charbonnet. We got Parker Washington from Penn State, probably a name you guys might not have heard so far, and Darnell Washington, the big boy from Georgia, just 6'7", 270 stud. In fact, he's the first guy on this tier that I'm going to mention. At the 2.06, the 6th pick in the second round. Great mid-round pick here, guys. Such a large tight end. Hauls down catches over guys. Great 50-50 balls. I think he's going to be a great red zone threat in the NFL. He might take a couple years and to get that overall dominance in the NFL, like most tight ends do. But I'm willing to spend a mid-round pick on this guy and hope that he shows up and really dominates and is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So 21 years old, a little bit younger than Michael Mayer. I think Michael Mayer has shown better receiving skills as far as route running, ability to catch the ball and run after catch. I think Michael Mayer has better acceleration, but high-end speed. Michael Mayer is a little bit slower than Darnell Washington, and so that's why I rank Darnell Washington lower than Michael Mayer, is because Darnell Washington is a little bit slow on his route running. He just seems a little bit laggardly in his route running, kind of just like really slow, and he's just a big guy. So we'll see how that develops over his career, but his ability to haul in catches, over players is just fantastic. He's just so big, so large. And if a team utilizes him correctly, if they run the correct routes for his capabilities, he's going to be a great tight end. Great red zone threat. And his high end speed is probably going to be, again, faster than Michael Mayer. So I like his breakaway potential, and he does run true to his size as far as breaking tackles, but sometimes I think he does things like trying to hurdle guys where I just don't think that's safe, or I don't think that's really in his deck of cards as far as his capability. I just don't think that's smart for him. So I think he's got to be the next tight end off this board here, guys, and he's got to be above the two other guys in this tier. Again, landing spot will make a difference. But then the next guy, we got Parker Washington. This guy might come as an absolute steal in the mid to late second round. Again, this class is so deep that it's like, holy crap, this guy's going to be falling this late. Watch his tape. This guy has got a pretty wild wide receiver build. I mean, he's about the size of some of these running backs in this draft class. He's a 5'10", so a little bit shorter than most of the running backs, but 215. And I'm thinking his 40 is going to be around a 4.5, which is just fine for his play style. He's got good route running, and he's got good run after catch with his size. So he's kind of got that Deebo Samuel build, but a little bit more stocky, which could be nice as far as taking hits. I think he could be used in the running game as far as like reverses are concerned. Obviously, don't run him up the middle. San Francisco, stupid. That's why Deebo Samuel's hurt. But there's a lot of good things to say about this guy. He's still 20, about to be 21, so he's got that youth. Playing at Penn State, where the quarterback play and the passing game might not be the greatest, he still did well, 13 yards per catch. And he had some catches that were fabulous. I mean, some of his spectacular catches, I think this guy has got a sleeper. He's got this sleeper play style in this NFL draft and this Dynasty draft for you guys in your mock draft, where you're going to have to watch where he lands. This guy, I swear to God, I think he's got to be a late second round pick in the NFL draft. I just think he's that good. We'll see, though. He might be an early third round pick, and I think that'd be an absolute steal for an NFL team. But this guy, very big sleeper here, guys. I think after watching his tape, I had to put him there. I just had to. At the 2.08, guys, we got to go with Zach Charbonnet. Still young, at 21 years old after playing 4 years in college. He reportedly has a really fast 40 time, could be sub 440. I personally didn't see that much speed on his tape. Maybe it was just the camera angles, whatever. He was running behind a really good offensive line, so that might have helped his overall production in college. He had a very high yards per carry, as you can see here, guys. But he just looked very slow on his cuts. Did not look very shifty. I know he's got that, again, prototypical NFL build at 6 foot, 220. But I just think he looked a little bit slow in his cuts. I think the offensive line definitely helped him succeed. He is a fast back, but I wonder where his NFL draft capital will be. I just think, again, there are many more talented running backs ahead of him in this draft class that I need to take above him currently as it stands. We'll see what the NFL draft, how that shakes out. But as of right now, the 2.08 pick for Zach Charbonnet, I think is right around home for him at this point in time. And then for our last tier, we got 4 guys. Okay, we got a quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and running back. So it's diversified. We got Hendon Hooker here. We got Blake Corum. We got Dalton Kincaid, tight end, and Zay Flowers. I know you guys are probably going to be upset that Blake Corum is this long list, but I just don't think he's that good. I don't. I don't think he's going to be that successful in the NFL. But if he ends up being successful, this is a steal. I think this is a safe pick for him in this tier. Okay, this is a great pick for him. I think if he was in previous drafts like last year, he probably would have been picked earlier. But this class I just think is so deep in talent. Overall volume stats, guys, obviously, hey, none of these guys are really popping off the page that much compared to previous years. But, they've had seasons where it's like, wow, surprising. Anyways, guys, I got to go with the 2.09 pick, Zay Flowers, wide receiver. I think wide receivers are a little bit more bulletproof in the sense that, they can go to situations and they got more time to progress where they won't be given up on. Running backs, they got like a year or 2, maybe 3, if they're really freaking good, before teams are like, all right, I'm just going to draft another one. So wide receivers, I think they got a little bit more time. That's where I like Zay Flowers being above Blake Corum here in this tier. And in this mock draft, I think, Zay Flowers, he's 22.25 years old, so he's probably going to be 23 coming into the NFL, and a little bit of an older receiver. But he's had some pretty consistent seasons here in his college football career. He's 5'10", 172-ish, so undersized again, probably more of a slot type guy. He's 40, he's a pretty quick guy, so there is that going for him. He was used in the rushing game. Was it the most efficient? Not the most, but he's shown that he can have that utilization in the NFL because he's got that speed. So that's why I got him at the top of this tier, guys. The next guy on my list, Blake Corum. I know you guys are thinking this is way too low for him, but I just think he's undersized. I know he's got they think he's got a respectable 40, but I don't know what we're going to see now because he's injured. He just got surgery on his knee, so that's definitely not good for him. He averaged 6 yards per carry in his career, which is great. Good to see that he's able to maintain that 5.9 yards per carry when he's getting 247 attempts this past season, 1,450 yards, 18 touchdowns, decent work in the receiving game. So I think it depends how well he comes back from his injury. Where's his draft capital? Are the NFL teams going to invest in him? I think if he's at least a high-end third-round pick, where I think he could fall to, I think it might maybe increase his draft capital a little bit, depending on your team needs. Let's talk about the last 2 guys here on this list. We got Dalton Kincaid, tight end, who I think is, a good route runner for a tight end. He's a little bit more undersized than Michael Mayer and Darnell Washington. but he is older too. So he's 23 years old, probably going to be entering the NFL season in his late 23 year age range. But he's 6'4", 240, so a little bit lighter of a tight end, probably more of a receiving tight end, which might knock his overall utilization in the NFL because they want to have a tight end who can block and catch the ball. But he's got probably like a 4.65 or 4.7 40, so he's not the fastest guy, but he can find his way to get open, and I think this is a good spot for a tight end to go late second round. Then we got the last pick in this draft, Hendon Hooker, guys. I know he's an older guy, but he's had the stats to show that, you know, he's a pretty talented, he's had the stats to show that he gets the job done. Bigger quarterback, older quarterback, probably might be a little bit more ready for the NFL, but it's going to be, you know, throwing crap at the wall and seeing if it sticks here. But in a Superflex league, this is a pretty dang good spot to pick Hendon Hooker in the late second round and take a shot on a quarterback. I think some of the guys after this, the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, I just think it's more worth it to take a shot on a quarterback here. Maybe after the combine, maybe after the NFL draft, we might see a different quarterback slip his way into this list over Hendon Hooker, but I got him here right now so far. That wraps up my 2-round, 12-pick mock draft, guys, for 2023. I know that was a long-winded video. I hope you guys got a lot out of it. I know I had to really get a lot of information out there for 24 picks. I wanted to make it as concise as I could, but giving you guys enough information as I could so that you guys could get a little better knowledge on these players. Maybe you guys might look into guys more deeper after watching this video, but I'm happy you guys have watched to this point. If you did, obviously, again, subscribe, turn on your notifications if you want to stay in tune and stay in touch for Christian's mock draft coming up here soon, probably after the college football playoffs, and then our put together ideas for our post NFL combine mock draft, and then our post NFL draft mock draft, and then also our IDP inclusive mock drafts as well. So many good things coming here, guys. A lot of stuff to be excited for the 2023 NFL draft. A lot of valuable picks here, guys. First and second round, especially, just so deep, in my opinion, with talent. And I'm thinking I'm in love with this draft class. I'm really hoping NFL, coaches, GMs, front office, all of them, I really hope they make good decisions with these skilled players and they give them the opportunity that they deserve, because it is going to be a fight between these players for draft capital. So, as always, guys, Cover 3 Media, we got you covered. We're winning championships. We got sacred information here at Cover 3 Media, stuff that you might not want to be sharing with your league mates and your friends, but hey, I can't stop them from finding us. We're growing every day. Again, drop a subscription. Follow our Instagram and TikTok account. We got some very good, quick videos coming out quite frequently to give you in-season advice, maybe some future advice with your Dynasty lineups and your situations, just to keep your eye on fantasy football and keep you entertained in the offseason. I know some of you guys, your seasons are done, like I said before. Some of you guys are in the playoffs, but hey, once the NFL season's done, we're talking 2023. So Cover 3 Media, we got you covered. Thank you for the support. Have a good one.